Welcome. Emails are flying in asking me questions about sleeping. What's the best position to sleep in? I have anterior pelvic tilt. I have posterior pelvic tilt. I have lateral pelvic tilt. What is the best position for you to sleep in? In anterior pelvic tilt, the pelvic goes forward, increased lordosis in the lower back, tight or tighter hip flexors. I'll come back to that in a minute. Posterior pelvic tilt, pelvic rotates back, lumbar lordosis straightens out. Lateral pelvic tilt, you get a deviation of the vertebrae where one pelvic sits up a little higher than the other. Very important to understand when people sit, people think that you go more into an anterior pelvic tilt or more of an increased sway back or lordosis. Not true. When you sit, you get more of a posterior pelvic tilt. You lose the curve in the back. You share more forces in the back of the disc, affecting the nucleus pulposus being pushed back towards the posterior longitudinal ligament and the annular fibers, potentially causing more disc problems. You can look at these pictures right here. You can see that when people sit, look at the C-shape type of curve that people get. It's obvious. Even though people are saying it's the opposite, it's not true. When you're sitting in a posterior pelvic tilt, you can see how much sharing force is being put upon the annular fibrosis, which will cause discs to herniate or bulge. Now think about this. If you have an anterior pelvic tilt, and now you sit, this anterior pelvic tilt becomes posterior now, and now you lose the lumbar lordosis, you put more stress on the discs. Actually, studies show that standing up against gravity with an anterior pelvic tilt, it changes when you lie down with no gravity. So this takes us back to sleeping. That when you're lying down like this, we have a increased lordosis of the curve in here. So obviously, as we bend the knees up a little bit, it starts to flatten out, which is good because now we're taking tension off the psoas muscles. Okay, but in the same token, more than that, you can take this same position and go on your side. It does not have to be on your back. As long as the knees are up, we're relaxing the psoas muscles. Now the question here is, when you have posterior pelvic tilt, how much is it tilted? How much is it tilted forward in anterior pelvic tilt? Or how much is it tilted in lateral pelvic tilt? Minutely. Believe me, it's minutely. It's not a great amount of degrees that holds any concern. Now, the other purpose of bending the knees, okay, maybe putting a pillow underneath there on your back or your side, is because not so much only the psoas muscles, the facet joints. Well, laying on your side or back and keeping the knees flexed with a pillow underneath the knees, look what's happening. The intervertebral foramen is opening up. The facet joints, where the bones sit on the back, is opening up. You're allowing those nerves to free up. So what's most important is you're reducing irritation off the nerve. Just not releasing muscles, but opening up the intervertebral foramen where the nerve is exiting through. That's extremely important. So remember, the hip flexors, the iliacus, and the psoas muscles, the psoas major and minor, primarily the major, attaches to the lumbar vertebrae as well as to the top of the hip region, top of the thigh, leg area. The important thing is those muscles work differently from each other. People think that together they're only hip flexors. That's not correct. They have two different nerve innervations. One primarily likes to flex, the other one likes to counterbalance that flexion to support the lower lumbar region. So there's a lot of different research and a lot of authors who have different studies indicating that those hip flexors are not just for what people think they are when it comes down to causing anterior pelvic tilt or increased lumbar lordosis. So make sure when you're sleeping on your back or your side, remember that the head and the neck is just as important as the lower back. They all work together, because if you're sleeping with your knees bent and you have your head propped up on your back or propped up too high on your side, it's going to cause other potential problems as well. Make sure that your head is in neutral plane with the spine when you're on your side. Make sure when you're on your back you have a low pillow or a cervical pillow to support your neck. And I hope that makes and it really helps a lot of your conditions. If you have questions, leave them below. Share this video with others, and I ask you to subscribe if you haven't so you can continue to receive the best of the self-help videos here on the internet. Make it a great day. I'm Dr. Alan Mandel.